We're busy with the rut, and I'm sure you guys are too. I'm really excited because we've had a pretty lame, boring rut as far as weather goes. There hasn't been a lot of ups and downs. I can look back to I think it was 2012 and 2013, and I believe 12 was the volatile year. And you look back at Weather Underground for your area, and I just urge you to do this because it's really cool, and it gives you a lot of insight into why bucks move when they move and how you can take advantage of it, and that's what this is all about. But if you look back at 2012, look for the month of October and November, both months, and then look at 2013, October, November. And 2012 was a very volatile weather year. It went like this. And you look at wind speed change, wind direction change, temperature change, everything across the board that's a measurable was extreme, up and down. That's because the weather was extreme going back and forth. At 13, it's more like this, just a real slow progression of the weather. 2012, great rut. 2013, boring rut. You don't see a lot of movement during the day. It's just kind of boring. I like weather because it puts bucks on their feet. It's common sense, and if you spend a lot of time outdoors, you see it. And one thing it really goes back to and bases that on is when extreme weather comes through, it suppresses feeding opportunities. So let's just forget about the rut. So when feeding opportunities are suppressed, deer feed 5 times in a 24-hour period, then they don't eat in feeding. Let's just look at it 5 times in a day. The third feeding to me is the most important. That's right before dark, twice during the dark during dark hours, and then twice during daylight hours back in their beds. So you look at those 5 times. When they feed heavy in one time, it suppresses for the next time. At the same time, when you have a big system that goes through and they're laying back in their beds and not feeding for 3 times, 5 times, 7 times in a 36-hour period because it's a big front, wind suppresses movement. They don't want to go out into the open fields. It's common sense. Heavy rain. They don't want to move around. Their senses are damaged. Heavy wind, rain, snow, thunder, lightning, blizzard conditions. Get the picture. It suppresses feeding opportunity because they're not getting, even if they stand up, they can stand up. Sometimes studies will show that they're still moving. Well, for one, a lot of times they're moving to get out of the wind. Like where I'm going hunting tonight, I'm hunting down low. We have high winds up top, 30-mile-an-hour gusts. I'm going to go hunt low and get out of the wind. It pushes an unusual or a higher percentage of bucks and deer in general down into those lower areas to get away from the wind. At the same time, even during bad weather, 5 times in a 24-hour period, they're going to stand up and they're going to move that way. In a lot of those studies, if that deer moves a yard, it picks it up. So it'll show, they moved 100 yards, but they didn't really move out of a 10-yard area. They just stood up and browsed here and there and everywhere in that little area because they couldn't go out to the good food sources. They couldn't go out to the open hardwoods, feed on acorns, get out into cornfields, beans, whatever, just fill in the blank, apple orchards, apple trees, whatever. They didn't get out into their normal areas where they just sit there and gorge, even though they moved a lot on paper or on a computer or some type of radio collar program. They didn't move that far, point A to point B, but they actually moved within this little 10-yard area. And that's what they'll still do. They'll get up and browse. But they're missing quality feedings. When that happens, as soon as the weather clears, they can't wait to feed. And sometimes with a big weather front, that's 7 times they've missed, 9 times quality feedings, whatever it might be, they're ready to feed. And now add the rut and add the peak rut. The peak rut's so different than the pre-rut. It's so different than the rut lockdown. Pre-rut, deer are really ramping up into their activity, but does aren't quite ready yet. All of a sudden, does exponentially start to come into estrus, 3 times, 4 times more does than every buck. And even if 25% of those does come into estrus on the front side of that ramp as it's heating up to the climax of the rut, then every buck gets invited to the party because so many does are in heat, and that's what the rut lockdown is. We are past that now. Now we're getting in the peak rut. What's great about the peak rut lockdown, you never know when a buck's going to come off a doe and start looking. The problem is he could be with that doe for 2 to 3 days, especially an older buck, fighting off other bucks, keeping them in some corner somewhere, away from the other deer. Camera pictures slow down, you don't see as much, and then all of a sudden, bam, it happens. you get the peak rut, and that's when deer are moving everywhere. You never know when a mature buck's going to come cruising by. He's going to take breaks in there and rest. He has to. They can't go for 3 weeks straight rutting. They already lose such a high percentage of their body weight in this period of time. They get so run down. Right now, this weather forecast for the peak rut, we're looking at this weekend, the 8th and 9th and 10th. Our weather here is dropping for the first time. We're getting highs in the 30s, low 30s, and we're getting lows in the 20s, and I even saw 17 in the forecast somewhere. So over this weekend, extreme weather changes, lots of rain. I'm seeing forecasts of 55 to 80% wind. Just check it out where you're at. We're looking at this for the end of this week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It progressively gets better. We're seeing a high of 58 right now on Monday into Tuesday, and then it keeps getting better. In fact, we have high winds right now. So high winds suppresses deer movement. Again, when it breaks, the deer are ready to go. So look at what's going on in your area. Look for those weather changes. Look for the temperature change. Look for conditions to moderate. Forget about the moon. Forget about barometric pressure. It's when you see these temperatures change, and then bang, on that backside, they want to move, they want to feed, they want to replenish energy lost. And then guess what? It's the peak rut at the same time. So where am I hunting? I'm focusing on food source movement in the afternoon, not necessarily on the food source, and I'm focusing on bedding areas all morning and into early afternoon. So I might sit in the same stand all day, only if it's in between bedding and food, and I can expect movement all day. However, if I'm sitting near a bedding area, I'll happily sit there until 2, 3 in the afternoon if it's getting dark at 5:30. But I want to flip over to a food source movement, because the closer it gets to dark, if I'm on the outside of that bedding area and deer going the opposite direction to food, the closer it gets to dark, the less likely I am to see buck movement. So I'm focusing on that X of movement for the first part of the day, the second part of the day, anywhere in between bedding area, back behind bedding area, sitting with a wind in my face. I don't like sitting in the middle of a bedding area and spooking it out. I want to sit on the edge. So I'm going to sit on the edge of a bedding area tonight, kind of like in a bedding area staging area, where they exit that bedding area, they hit a water hole, then they go to distant food. I'm going to be close to that bedding area. I can get in because of the ridge systems, the high winds up top. Should be able to sneak in pretty well for a 3.5 to 4 hour sit. And then it's that afternoon food source movement. I love sitting on a water hole 100 yards before a food plot, 50 yards, whatever it might be, and the type of bucks I'm hunting. So that's where I'm hunting. I want to sit in the woods all day. It might be that I'm typically not sitting in the same stand all day, because that's counterproductive. Find that only 15-20% of stands are good where they're in that perfect X of movement all day, but I'll go from one stand to the next. The type of buck I'm hunting a buck newbie, we call him. We haven't seen him since January. Now 6 out of the last 7 nights, he's been on the land. Middle of the night a lot. He's only been in shooting light one time, 20 minutes after dark another time, so he was close. I don't even know if he's on the land. He comes over from the neighbors. But his home territory out of season is somewhere else. It's approximately 3/4 of a mile to a mile away. That's the type of buck. He starts to slant in, the corn gets cut, hunters start pressuring in the area, and then all of a sudden he starts to move in, and it's a push and pull. All of a sudden he's here, he might go for a day. Then he's spending more time, and then he's gone for a day or two. Then he spends more time, and all of a sudden, late November, December, he's on us quite a bit all the way through January. He just relocates. We see a lot of bucks like that. You're typically hunting bucks. Yeah, it could be your local buck that's here all the time, but those bucks can be somewhere else now during this time, during the peak rut. I'm specifically hunting those bucks that are non-core bucks. I'm not saying I don't hunt the core bucks around here, but I've already had a chance at those. I'm hunting those bucks specifically that I've noticed movement during the peak rut, post rut around here. That'd be the 10th of November, 8th of November, 7th of November, 6th. And those bucks through the 13th, 14th of November. Might have only had 3 pictures of that buck in the past, but I know he's going to come through at some time. He's been telling me that for years, and that's that perfect timing. So I'm looking for bucks that you might not see the end of October. The peak rut, they're now breeding their 3rd, 4th doe of the season, and they're ready to roam. It's becoming more slim pickings in their own area. They obviously have does in their area, and then all of a sudden now they're on the move and they're moving long range. You call them long range cruisers. And when you look at extreme weather changes, we're finally getting them. You look at peak rut timing and you put that all together with long range cruising bucks, and it's a recipe for a lot of bucks going down in through this weekend. And then you're looking at, now we're in that, it might be rut lockdown over in Kansas this weekend, or ending pre-rut lockdown right around in there, in through West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, in that line. But when you go north, this weekend's going to be peak rut, and you can't miss out on this extreme weather change. Hey, we just had a discount alert, WHS 15 through Tethered. We've been able to get our feet wet using the Tethered tree saddle this year, and it's an incredible tool in the toolbox. Is it the tool you use everywhere? No, but neither is anything else in life, tree stands, whatever. It's a great tool. Try it out. Link is in the description.